but I love him because he's just one of the best partners in a scene to do scene work with. He's so fresh and impulsive and creative. He never does a single take twice the same way. It's always new ideas coming. So my job is really just to sit back and listen and watch and observe and really just be sort of the straight man in this comedy. Really just giving the comedians that are all around me their due, attention and time.
And Sarah, how delightful is it for you that you don't have to be in a sort of wardrobe for 2.5 hours and have a prosthetic head being made up for you and sort of put on your own sort of face? And do you, when you see it each time, does it give a little sort of shiver down the spine, a little bit of goosebumps, and in terms of was seeing as the creativity that gone behind it when Harry puts on his alien face, dare I say?
Yeah, I think it's very intricate, and the design by our special effects team is incredible. When you see it in person, it's a lot softer and kind of squishier to touch. So it feels a lot more soft in person than it does when you see it on the screen, and it's very dark and menacing. But it's always really fun to talk to Alan while he's usually in what is half his makeup. He's usually got like sweatpants on. So it's a little hybrid, a little Alan Tudyk and Harry all in one. But it's always really fun to see the special effects, to see the alien come to life, to see Alan's choices that he makes for the alien that day, that scene. And it's just been a real pleasure being able to be on the show.
And Sarah, when you got involved, it seems now like an eternity ago, now back in season 1, what was your own initial hopes and excitements for the show? I know as actresses and actors, you obviously go with the plot that take it one episode by a time, take it one season by a time, and
that's right.
If it's if that's where the journey ends, that's where the journey ends, and count your blessings and on to the next project or so. But did you have any little hopes and tendering hopes that first of all that your character might be a mainstay in the series, and then second of all that it might renew and the fans might catch on to it and there might be follow-up seasons, or are you very much working from episode to episode? And when did you get a clear sense that this might be a longer sort of task?
We've had a really interesting, long, twisty tail journey with this show. When we shot the pilot, it was September 2018. I had booked it off of one self-tape, which just felt like a dream. My agents gave me a call. They were excited. They said, "I'm pretty sure you're the girl." I was waitressing at the time, so I have a tendency to just not get my hopes up too much. Just because it's a pilot doesn't mean it's going to get picked up. And obviously having a series regular on television would definitely change my life. It would definitely make me walk away from waitressing, which I finally did when we did get picked up for season 1. But I actually didn't tell anybody about the pilot because I didn't want to jinx it. I mean, my husband knew and my family knew, but I just didn't want to say, "Oh, I booked this thing," and then everybody asks questions and then it doesn't get picked up. So I'm a little bit of a, keep it close to the chest that way. But it took about a year, and then we finally picked up for season 1. So I was waitressing all the way up until we started shooting season 1. And then just as we were finishing season 1, COVID hit and we never actually got to finish on time. So we had to wait a few months. Then we had to go back during quarantine, finish shooting, and we didn't actually air season 1 until a year later. So it was literally 2 years to almost the day that we shot the pilot that we finally aired season 1. So to be honest, I really didn't know what was going to happen with this show. I was hopeful. I was grateful that I could walk away from my waitressing job and that I could finally say, I'm a series regular. I've stepped up to that next level. But, you know, as you said, the business can be finicky, and you never know what opportunities you're going to get, or you're going to have to wait a while sometimes in between opportunities. So I was just enjoying it while I had it. But COVID really, as we all know, shut the whole world down, and it became very, nothing really felt safe or sure or secure anymore, especially not something as what felt like trivial at the time as television shows, even though that ended up being, I think, a huge plot point for us as a show. I think quarantine really upped our numbers of people watching, because normally they wouldn't check out a sci-fi show. They don't like sci-fi, or they don't know who Alan Tudyk is, but then they would dive in and they were delightfully surprised. So I think, in this weird twisted way, COVID quarantine saved our lives. And I think that's why we picked up for season 2. And then because of COVID, it took twice as long to shoot it, because you had to do less hours. You had to do testing 3 times a week. So my experience as a series regular has been anything but normal. I don't actually quite know what it is to be a normal series regular, but that kind of just goes along with this show. It's not a normal show. There's so many things that are involved. And so the fact that we got to season 3 was honestly a true miracle, because we also had a strike in our industry last year. And when we finished shooting season 3, we weren't able to actually air it until this year. So from start to finish, we've been on like a 6-year journey, and we've only got 3 seasons to show for it, because there's been a lot going on in the world. But there's also been a lot going on in Patience, Colorado, and in Harry's world, and in Asta's world. And I think, to answer your question about whether or not I knew if I would be a pinnacle role, I did read the comic books. I knew that Asta and Harry were a very charming duo. So I always knew that if the show went on, that I would be a definite pinnacle role for him and for the world. But I never imagined that it would take as long as it has just to get you a season 3, which is finally premiering in Ireland. That is so exciting. And now we're just crossing fingers for a season 4. Let's just keep it going, shall we?
Yes, let's keep the good times going. And tell us a bit about, for our audience and our listeners, about your character Asta. How does she fall in line, or how is she the Bonnie to Alan's Tudyk's Clyde in terms of Harry, or what's her sort of role? Is she, dare I say, the most forgiving of the human species towards the alien, or is she one of the most condescending human species?
Depends on who you ask, I think. Asta Twelvetrees is a woman who was raised in Patience, Colorado by her adoptive father, Gary. Actually, his name's Gary Farmer, but she has been raised in the community of Patience. She sort of, she gets pregnant when she's young. She decides to give the baby up. She ends up having her sort of abusive relationship with her husband. And, at the top of the show, it's sort of very dark. We see her finally choosing to go back home, leave her husband, but she's dealing with a lot of shame about giving up her child. And that's when Harry comes crashing down into Earth and crashes into her life. And she feels very intrigued by this person who feels somehow like he understands what it's like to be an outsider. And so does Asta. So they bond, I think, right away on being outsiders and not being completely understood by their people, by their community. But a lot of it is in Asta's head. She has this amazing community around her. Her father, Dan, her cousin, Kayla, her best friend, Darcy. It's just that she can't really see it. She can't really see the love that's surrounding her, because she is filled with so much shame and grief for giving up her baby. Which, spoiler, if you haven't seen the first 2 seasons, becomes to pass that she knows her daughter very well. And I think Harry and her bond over the fact that he is lacking connection to his home, and she's lacking connection to who she is. And I think they do sort of become a Bonnie and Clyde, especially in season